Now that we've learned about news writing, Associated Press style, and how to use and understand editing marks, we're going to learn about what this class is all about, feature writing. First, we'll talk about some guidelines to help get you started in feature writing. Go over 4 different types of features, learn about the feature process, how to write feature leads, what content goes into a feature story, and finally, we'll end with feature endings. Sally Adams, who authored this chapter in the Hicks textbook, provides us with a few guidelines to writing features. First, features, and really any journalistic writing, should involve the reader. News writing for daily or weekly newspapers are rather generic, including news that would interest the paper subscribers. Since most newspaper coverage is based on a geographic region, the subscribers could include multiple demographics and a variety of age ranges, races and ethnicities, and income and education levels. Features, on the other hand, can appear in magazines and other specialty publications that have a much more targeted demographic. A feature on sexually transmitted infections for 17 magazine, for example, would look much different than one on the same topic for Ebony or Good Housekeeping or AARP, the magazine. Features need to be accurate. Just like any other piece of journalistic writing, a feature story needs to be well written, well researched, well sourced, fair, balanced, and most importantly, factually accurate. Again, like any other story, a feature story must have a grabbing lead. We'll talk more about feature leads in a few minutes. Features must also be readable. Jenny Orlos from the blog Designed by Words recommends using precise but simple words and avoiding jargon. Break down your information into readable chunks and use analogies and illustrative examples. Features should follow the brief. This means the writer should follow the instructions given by the editor. This includes the deadline, that's the date and time the story is due, the word length, the angle of the story, questions to answer, and other information the editor wants to be included or excluded from the story. And finally, features must have substance. They must be worth reading, or else they won't be. Adams also offers 4 questions feature writers should ask about their stories. Did I read it to the end? Was it smoothly written, taking me effortlessly from point A to point Z? If I did read it to the end, was I convinced by what I read? Was it accurate and authoritative? If I was convinced, did I care? Was it relevant? Did I feel involved? Now, if I cared, am I going to do anything about it? Cut it out and keep the feature? Show it to my friends? Write to the editor? Follow the expert advice? Learn from the example? Put those suggestions into practice? Now, when writing a story, think like a reader. When it is your job to tell stories, you want to tell them in the best way possible to appeal to your readers. Now, what stories do you read to the end? What stories do you share with friends on social media? These are the stories that you are going to try to write here. There are 4 types of feature stories, each of which you will write for this class. The first is a profile, a portrait in words of an individual or an organization. Next is the news and issue feature. These are news feature hybrids that put the news in context and go behind the headlines. Product reviews are another type of feature story. These can be stories on the best new car or washing machine to buy, as published in Consumer Reports, tech gadgets from CNET, and of course movies, TV, book, music, and restaurant reviews. Now, opinion columns and editorials are the last main type of feature story. Now we'll move on to the feature story writing process. Not surprisingly, it starts with an idea. Sometimes journalists are assigned stories by their editors, and sometimes they come up with their own ideas. When thinking of ideas for feature stories, recall the news values we already learned about: impact, immediacy, proximity, prominence, novelty, conflict, and emotions. Once you have your idea, follow your brief. Now, if you aren't sure about what your editor wants, ask. Research is your next step. Try to get the basic who, what, when, where, why, and how on your idea. This will help you formulate questions for your fourth step, the interview. Human sources, meaning people you actually talk to and not quotes from other news stories, news reports, or books, are vital to feature stories that are often designed to have emotional appeal. You also want your story to provide something unique that readers can't get in stories on the same topic in other publications. Now, once you have your interviews completed, you move on to the planning phase. Put your notes together, notice any holes you have in your story, and call your sources back to verify facts or ask additional questions. Finally, sit down and start writing. Now, our textbook author, Winfred Hicks, recommends to start writing much earlier in the process, typing out notes and quotes. I'll consider all that pre-writing. Now, this is where you should put the final product together, revising along the way to answer questions and add additional detail as necessary.